Cryptography Fundamentals. Today we are going to discuss about message authentication code in network security. Before discussing about message authentication code, let's discuss about the objective of the same. What is the objective of learning MAC code? So the objective is that only authentic users will see the message that is being shared between two communicating parties. So what does that mean? There could be authentication headers that could be used. There could be like various authentication schemes or protocols, I can say, that could be used so that we can provide the authentication security to the underlying algorithm that we are going to discuss in authentication technique. So what is basically authentication technique? Let's discuss about the same. What is basically MAC and what are various concepts that are associated with the MAC. So if we are talking about MAC here, MAC is a symmetry key algorithm. Now symmetry key, what is basically symmetry key? In which one key is used for encryption and decryption. So it is a symmetry key cryptographic technique that is used to provide message authentication, because whatever the message that is transmitted between the sender and the receiver, it could be secured, or I can say it could be protected with the authentication scheme that we are going to use in message authentication code. So for to establish a MAC process, the sender and receiver, they could share a symmetry key K, like same key is used for encryption and same key is used for decryption. So what is the procedure behind the same? We will be discussing in the upcoming slide. Like essentially a MAC is an encrypted checksum that is generated on the underlying message that is sent along with the message to ensure message authentication. So the process of message authentication, I will be depicting that in the upcoming slide that is shown here, like this one. So I will explain the concept here when I will finish with the 7th slide. So let's discuss about the basic concepts of MAC here. Like it is concerned with protecting the integrity of the message so that the integrity of the message could not be violated. In addition, there is a validation that is concerned with the identity of the originator and known repudiation of the origin. There are more concerns that are having concern regarding message authentication. First one is it will consider the security requirements, and there are 3 alternative functions that could be used. For example, like message encryption, message authentication code, and hash function that could be used. But how we are supposed to use these 3 functions, we will discuss one by one. What is basically message encryption, what is message authentication code, and what is hash function here. So we will discuss all the concepts or all the functions one by one. But what is the basically whole process in message authentication code? Let's try to understand the same. Like the sender uses some publicly known MAC algorithm. It could be any algorithm that inputs the message and the secret key K that could produce a MAC value. So it is similar to hash. Hash mean to say like it is a kind of indexing that we are going to use in MAC, because MAC is associated with hashing. So similar to hash, MAC function also compresses an arbitrarily long input into a fixed length output. So this is the function that is associated with MAC function. So the major difference between hash and MAC is that MAC uses the secret key during the compression, but hash does not use the secret key during the compression. So the sender forwards the message along with the MAC, and we can assume that the message is sent, that is it is clear, and we are concerned of providing message origin authentication but not confidentiality, because if confidentiality is required, then the message need encryption, because that is concerned with the privacy of the data. So we need message encryption here. But on the like when the recipient is receiving the message and the MAC, the receiver feeds the received message and shares the secret key K into the MAC algorithm and recomputes the MAC value. In addition, the receiver checks equality of freshly computed MAC with the MAC that is received from the sender, and if both match, then the receiver accepts the message and assures himself that the message has been sent by the intended sender. In addition, if the computed MAC does not match the MAC that is sent by the sender, then the receiver cannot determine whether it is the message that has been altered or it is the origin that has been falsified. So I can say, as the bottom line, a receiver safely assumes that the message is not the genuine. So there are certain limitations that are associated with Mac. So what are basically two major limitations that I am going to discuss today? Like the establishment of, first one is the establishment of shared key, and second is like inability to provide known repudiation. So what is basically establishment of shared key, or I can say shared secret? So it can provide message authentication among pre-decided legitimate users who have shared key. Next is this requires establishment of shared secret prior to the use of Mac. If I am talking about inability to provide known repudiation, so what is the same? Like known repudiation, we have discussed this term in many lectures. It is the assurance that a message originator cannot deny any previously sent messages and commitments or any actions. So in addition, MAC technique does not provide a known repudiation service. So if the sender and receiver get involved in a dispute over a message originator, then MAC cannot provide a proof that message was indeed sent by the sender. Though there is no third party that can compute the MAC, but still sender could deny having sent the message and claim that the receiver might have forged it. So as it is impossible to determine which of the two parties that have been computed the MAC. So these are two limitations that could be overcome by using public key based digital signatures. How it could be overcome? It could be overcome by using public key. Now what is basically public key? Public key is concerned with like we are supposed to use two keys instead of one key. Like in Mac we are using only one key, and same key will be used for both the processes like encryption and decryption. But if I am talking about public key, then in public key what could be the case? Two keys will be used. One key that is publicly available to each and everyone who is involved in the network, and there is a private key that is only known to the sender and receiver, so that only authenticated, or I can say intended receiver could decrypt the message when it is required. So this is the benefit of using the two keys, or I can say public key cryptography over the, like it could remove the limitation that we have encountered in Mac. So this is the whole procedure behind the same. So next is various security requirements. What are the various security requirements in Mac? Like it could be the disclosure of the information that is being sent. It could be the disclosure of the information that is being sent. Next is we are supposed to deal with traffic analysis. Next is masquerade, content modification. We are supposed to deal with the same. Sequence modification if it is there. Timing modification, source repudiation, and destination repudiation. So these are certain requirements that we are supposed to discuss when we are dealing with Mac security, because all these terms comes into the picture when we are sending information over the protocol in which we are using Mac. Next is the three functions that we have discussed here. What is encryption, what is MAC, and what is hash function. So we are going to discuss each and every function one by one. So what is basically message encryption? Like encryption as the name implies, we are supposed to convert the message into any scrambled text, or I can say the text that is not easily readable or that is not understood by the readers. So it could be a message encryption by itself. It also provides a measure of authentication. Like if symmetric encryption is used, then there are certain points that we are supposed to remember, like receiver knows sender must have created it, and since only sender and receiver now uh, they are using the key, so they are the key is only known to sender and receiver, and they can know the content that cannot be altered. So the content has not been altered, that could be assured by only sender and receiver. By the integrity of the message, if the integrity of the message is achieved, then it means that the message has not been altered. So if the message has suitable structure, then redundancy or a checksum to detect any changes could be there. Like if it is following a particular structure, like let's say if I am sending any message and it is having three parts, like first, second and third, and if it is as it is received by the receiver, then there is no problem in the same, like there is no integrity that has been altered, or there are no any kind of modifications or violations that are taking place in between when it is transmitted. So if it is changed, there is some duplicacy or there is some minor changes in the same, then we are supposed to take some action against the same. So there are more points that are associated with message encryption. What are those? Let's discuss one by one. Like if public key encryption is used, before we have discussed about the private key encryption. Now we are using public key encryption. Public key in which we are supposed to use two keys. Like encryption provide no confidence of the sender, and since anyone potentially knows public key, because we are using two keys, one is private key and one is public key. So public key is known to each and everyone who is involved in the transmission. So it is known to, like it is not maintaining any privacy of the information that is being shared between two parties, and anyone can potentially knows public key. However, if there are certain conditions that are associated with the same, like sender signs message using their private key. In addition, then it could encrypt with recipient's public key, and they both have secrecy and authentication. So these are the three key points that we are supposed to remember when we are dealing with the public key encryption. Again, we are supposed to recognize corrupted messages, but at the cost of two public key uses on the message, because one is used for encryption and one is used for decryption. Because now we are switched to public key encryption in which two keys are used. So that is why we are supposed to use two keys that we are using for the encrypting a particular message. So this is the term that is associated with message encryption and how we can perform the same. So what is basically message encryption? There is a more things that are added to the same, like if public key encryption is used and encryption provides no confidence of the sender and anyone can knows the public key. However, if sender signs the message using their private key or then encrypt with the recipient public key, or they have both secrecy and authentication. Next is the MAC function that we are going to discuss. What is basically MAC here? We will discussing the MAC in detail. So in cryptography, like we have discussed a lot about this term, like MAC. What is basically MAC? It is known as tag, or it can be a short piece of information that is used to authenticate a message. So like we can add, like if we are sending certain amount of data to over the network, then we can add a short header to the same, so that the receiver easily know that from where the message is coming from. So in that manner, we are supposed to authenticate the message, and we are supposed to add the authenticating header to the same. So that is the basic procedure behind the MAC code. We are supposed to add authentication headers. In addition, we are supposed to deal with message authentication coding here, or there could be some algorithms that could be used for same in order to protect the information over the network. So like in cryptography, it is sometimes known as tag, or it can be a header, it can be a tag. You can give any name to the same. So it could be a short piece, or I can say a very small information that could be appended to the text that is being transmitted, so that it is used to authenticate the message, like to confirm that the message came from the stated sender. Like we are supposed to check its authenticity, the authenticity of the message from where it is coming, and it has not been changed during the process. So the MAC value protects a message data integrity. That is why we are supposed to add the header. So as well as its authenticity, by allowing verifiers who also possess the secret key to detect any changes to the message content. Now, a message integrity code like MIC, MIC, it is frequently substituted for the term MAC, because like if we are dealing with the communication, then this term is used, basically integrity, because we are sending message. If the integrity of the message is maintained, then it is okay, otherwise it is violated. Obviously it is the case that it is violated. Next case is the obvious case that it is violated. So that is why we are changing the name from MAC to MIC, that is message integrity code. So it is substituted for the term that is MAC. So and it could be we can use this term basically in the communications that we are doing. So it is used to distinguish it from the use of the MAC as the media access control address, that is media access control address. That is, it is a unique identifier that is assigned to a network interface controller, or I can say NIC, that is that can use as a network address in communications within the network segment. And this use is common in most IEEE standards like IEEE 802 networking technologies, or it could include Ethernet, or it could include Wi-Fi and Bluetooth within the open network. So that is why this term is substituted as the media access control address. But some authors use MIC, like message integrity code, to refer to the message digest, because message digest is another algorithm that we are supposed to use when we are dealing with the privacy of the messages, or I can say security of the messages. This is very complex algorithm that we will be discussing in the next lecture, and its only aim is to uniquely identify a single message. That is why it is concerned with the message digest. So like rights for cryptography, or I can say rules for cryptography number 4949, it recommends avoiding the term message integrity code, and instead using checksum, error detection code, or hash, or I can say keyed hash, or message authentication code, or protected checksum. So these could be terms that could be used instead of MIC. So next is what is basically message authentication code here. Like it could be consist of three algorithms. First one could be like key generation. We are supposed to generate the key, and a key generation algorithm selects a key from the key space uniformly at random. Like next is assigning algorithm. Like we can include digital signatures as well. Assigning algorithm that could efficiently return a tag given the key and the message, or it could be any header, authentication header, that we can use instead of digital signature. Next is a verifying algorithm that could efficiently verifies the authenticity of the message if it is given with the key and the tag like authentication header. So that is, it would return accepted when the message and the tag are not tampered with or forged, otherwise it will be rejected. So a secure message authentication code must resist attempts by an adversary to forge tags for arbitrary or select, and it could be applied to all the messages that could be there, including under conditions of known or chosen message. So it should be computationally infeasible to compute a valid tag of the given message without knowledge of the key, even if for the worst case we assume the adversary known the tag of any message but the one in question. So formally, the message authentication system is a triple of efficient algorithm, that is GSV, that could be satisfying. First one could be key generation, that is G. It gives the key K on the input, where N is the security parameter, and S could be any signing authority that we are using. It could be a tag on the key and input string X. Next is a verifying technique that is concerned with the output, like whether it is accepted or rejected. And in addition, we are supposed to use the three terms like key and string and tag, because in the third step we are supposed to deal with all the things so that we can either accept the message or we can either reject the message. So next is basically security, because we are dealing with security terms here. So what is basically security here in Mac? When we are dealing with security, like Mac functions are similar to cryptographic hash functions, but they possess different security requirements. So to be considered secure, a Mac function must resist existential forgery and under chosen message attacks. Like it means that even if an attacker has an access to an oracle which possesses the secret key and generate max for messages of the attacker, that is choosing the attacker cannot guess the mac for other messages like which were not used to query the oracle, and it could perform without performing invisible amount of computation. So that could be the case in which we are supposed to deal with the security mechanisms here. So Mac differ from digital signature because like Mac values are both generated and verified by using three key concepts, and they could be verified using the same secret key. So it means that the sender and the receiver of a message, they must agree on the same key before initiating communications, as because in the case of symmetric encryption, for the same reason Mac do not provide the property of non repudiation as it is offered by the signature, specifically in the case of the network wide shared secret key. And any user who can verify a MAC is also capable of generating MACs for other messages. But on the other hand, if we are talking about digital signatures, then it is generated using the private key of a key pair, which is public key cryptography. In addition, because this is the private key only and it is accessible to only its holder, so a digital signature proves that a document was signed by none other than the holder. So digital signatures do offer non-repudiation. However, non-repudiation can be provided by systems that securely bind key usage information to the MAC key. And the same key is in the possession of two people, but one has a copy of the key that can be used for MAC generation, and other has the copy of the key in a hardware security module that only permits MAC verification. Sorry, this is commonly done in the finance industry. Next, after discussing about this security, there is a term that we are going to discuss, basically what is the implementation behind the Mac. So what is basically implementation? Like we have already discussed, Mac algorithms can be constructed from other cryptographic primitives like cryptographic hash functions, or from block cipher algorithms like DES or AES or PMAC or GCM. But many of the fastest Mac algorithms like UMAC, BMAC, and there are many algorithms that could be used for the same, like an example, are constructed based on universal hashing. So in order to understand the concept of Mac, we are supposed to distinguish easily between Mac and hashing, Mac and digital signature. Only then we will be able to know the, like I can say, the importance of Mac in that manner. Because if we know what is the difference between two things that we are going to use and what is best technique, only then we can measure the importance of the same. Otherwise, we are using Mac as well, we are using hashing as well, and we are using like digital signature as well, but we are not coming to a point that which is better or which is having more importance over the one. So in that manner, we are supposed to deal with the three in order to identify the importance of each and every term that is associated with the security measures. Like we are discussing about the implementation of Mac, like we can say that the implementation of Mac is best as compared to digital signature and I can say various other like hashing. But how we can determine that Mac is best as compared to digital and hashing? If we have not experienced the same techniques, then how could we judge the same? if we are supposed to judge the same, then we are supposed to use those techniques as well. Only then we will be able to deduce the actual meaning, or I can say the importance of each and every entity that we are going to use. So same is the case here. If we are dealing with the implementation of the MAC, intrinsically keyed hash algorithms, like there could be many algorithms that are used that are based on hashing techniques like SHIP hash. These are also by the definition of the MAC, and they can be even faster than the universal hashing based message authentication codes. So additionally, the MAC algorithm can deliberately combine two or more cryptographic primitives so as to maintain the protection even if one of them is later found to be at the risk, or I can say it could be vulnerable. For example, in transport layer security, if we are talking about transport layer security, we have already discussed about transport layer security. The input data is split in various halves and data are processed with a different hashing primitive. Like initially we are dealing with the data, and we are supposed to convert that into segments. After converting that into segments, we are supposed to compress the same. After compressing the same, we are supposed to apply the encryption. After applying the encryption, we are supposed to add the header. After applying the header, we are supposed to send that message, and we are supposed to fix that message in pattern that is given to us, and it is consist of, I think, 4 formats that we have discussed already in the TLS layer. So same is the case here. If we are dealing with, like for example, in TLS, then the input data is segmented, or I can say it is split into various halves, and that are each processed with different hashing primitives. Like we have used the hashing technique in TLS header, we have used the message authentication code, like we have appended the header to the same so that we can identify the identity of the message. In addition, we can use SHA technique as well, like secure hash algorithm could be used, but it is very, like I can say, complex algorithm. If we are dealing with the message that is concerned with minimum bits, or I can say there is a block of message that is concerned to few blocks, like 2 or 4 blocks, then MAC is okay. Otherwise, we are supposed to switch to the SHA. That is a complex procedure, and in that manner, it is very, I can say, it is very. It is not possible to reduce the message that is being transmitted, and it is not violated till date. No cases have been registered with the help of the SHA algorithm that the privacy is violated with by using SHA. But if we are supposed to use SHA, in that case we are supposed to deal with the high end message. Like message could be of the high digest or high end message, or I can say like it could be consist of 1024 bytes or more than that. That could be there, because it could not be applied to smaller messages that could be processed with the help of header only. So if we are talking about transport layer security, then input data is split in the half, and each are processed with a different hashing primitive. It could be SHA, it could be message authentication code, and then they could be XOR, like exclusive OR gate could be used, and that could be and there could be various functions that could be performed like PC1, PC2, and in the last they could be merged together to output the MAC. So there is the one-time MAC that is associated with the same. If we are dealing with the MAC, there is a provision of the one-time MAC. So what is basically one-time MAC? It is based on universal hashing. Now what is basically universal hashing? And in particular pairwise independent hash functions that could provide a secure message authentication code as long as the key is used at most once. And this can be seen as the one-time pad for the authentication method. Like one-time pad technique could be used here. Now what is one-time pad technique? It is the OTP, like we are receiving OTP for every transaction that we are supposed to do with the banking. So same is the case here. Like what is OTP? It is an encryption technique that cannot be cracked, but it requires the use of single use pre-shared key, because it is available to only single user that is registered only, and that is so no smaller than the message that is being sent. So in this technique, a plain text is paired with a random secret key. So this technique could be used for authentication as well, and the simplest such pairwise independent hash function is defined by the random key, like key is equal to A or B. A or B could be any key that we are going to use for the MAC algorithm, or I can say one time MAC, and the MAC tag for a message M, it could be computed like tag is equal to A M plus B. Now A could be a key that is used, and it could be appended with the message A and M plus B, that is also a key that we are going to use. In addition, we are supposed to perform the modulus of P, where P is a prime number that we are going to use. So in addition, we are supposed to perform calculations here, so that we are supposed to deal with the security procedures in a perfect manner, or I can say in an efficient manner. So most generally, K independent hashing functions provide a secure message authentication code as long as the key is used and it is less than K times for K based independent hashing functions. So message authentication codes and data origin authentications, like they have been, if you want to discuss in detail about the same, then you can discuss the framework of quantum cryptography. And like, on the other hand, the cryptographic task like key distribution, for a rather broad classification of quantum maps, it has been shown that the quantum resources do not offer any advantages over unconditionally secure one-time classical maps. So this was all about one-time map. Next is, this is the procedure, or I can say this is the diagram how basically message authentication work. This could be a source, this could be a destination, this is the message, and this could be the authentication scheme, or I can say this could be the key that could be used, and they could be appended with the same, and that message could be sent at the destination side. And if he is using the key, then it can compare the two messages that could be there. First one is the message that is received from here, and another is the message that is generated with the help of the key. If both the messages are same, then it will be accepted, otherwise it will be rejected. So this is the pictorial representation of the message authentication scheme. How does it work? So next is, there is a technique that is being used here. This is the sender and this is the receiver, and we are supposed to share a message between sender and receiver. How that message could be shared between the sender and receiver, there is a proper procedure, or I can say there is a proper algorithm for the same. So what is the technique that is being used? Like, you can see it in the picture, that the sender of the message run it through a MAC algorithm to produce a MAC tag data. So MAC tag data is being produced, and the message and the MAC tag that are sent to the receiver. Message and MAC tag both are sent to the receiver side, and the receiver in turn runs the message portion of the transmission through the same MAC algorithm using the same key, and it could produce a second MAC data tag. So the receiver then compares the first MAC tag that is received in the transmission to the second generated MAC tag. So if they are identical, then the receiver can safely assume that the message was not altered or tampered with during the transmission, but it means that data integrity is highly achieved. But however, to allow the receiver to be able to detect replay attacks, or like, what is basically replay attack, if we are supposed to discuss about the same, it is the form of network attack in which valid data transmission is maliciously or fraudulently repeated or delayed. There could be a hacker that is lying in between the message and the receiver, and it is sending the fraud request to the receiver side, and, or I can say, it could congest the message so that it would be difficult for the receiver to receive the actual message that is being sent from the sender side. So it is playing the replay attack here. Mean to say, it is a kind of a network attack in which I can say valid data transmission is maliciously or it could be repeated or delayed fraudulently, and this is carried out either by the originator or by an adversary who intercepts the data and retransmit it, possibly as a part of the spoofing attack by IP packet substitution. So this is one of the I can say lower tier version of the man in the middle attack, because this is the example of the man in middle attack. And replay attacks are usually passive in nature. Like the sender and receiver know nothing about what is happening in between. They might be saying that it is the problem of the network, or there could be some problem that is related to network issues, like there is a slow internet connection, or there could be any other issue that is related to only sender and receiver with that message only. But they are not easily judging that, or I can say they are not concluding that there could be any attack that could be taking place in between, and that could be replay attack. So another way I can describe that type of attack would be an attack on a security protocol, using the replay of messages from the different context into the intended context, thereby fooling the honest participant into thinking that they have successfully completed the protocol run. Now the question is how a replay attack works basically. Like there is a sender A and it wants to send the message to the sender B, and he wants to prove the identity to B as well, and B requesting the password of the A as an identity, and which A easily provide the password to the B after some type of performing some kind of hashing techniques, like or some kind of transformations in between. And meanwhile there is a passive attacker that is lying in between. There could be a C. So he's eavesdropping on the conversation and keeps the password, or I can say the hash that is being transmitted between A and B. And after the conversation is over, or I can say interchange is over, now the C, it could connect to the B, and when asked for the proof of identity, then C could send the password that is sent by the A, and it could read from the last session which B accepts, so thus granting the C easily access to the same. So in that manner, this replay attack works. So there is a passive attacker that is lying in between two sender and receiver, two parties, and he could easily replay the action, or he is easily, I can say, monitoring the conversation between two parties and responding to the messages when the, like I can say, when the strike, like they can strike the messages, like if B wants to get responded to a particular message for which the request he has generated to A, then in that manner, instead of generating the response by the A, she is generating the response. So this is the case here. So you can see it in the diagram. If the both the max are matches, then the message is safely, the receiver can safely assume that the message is not tampered during the transmission, and data integrity is highly achieved. However, to allow the receiver to be able to detect replay attacks, the message itself must contain data that assures that this same message can only be sent once. For example, we can use timestamps, sequence number, or we can use one-time max. So otherwise, an attacker could, without even understanding its contents, record this message and play it back at a later time, producing the same result as the originator sender. So this was about message authentication algorithm that we have discussed, or I can say this was the example of the MAC that we have discussed. Next is how we can prevent and countermeasure. We can take various measures if there is any attacker who is hacking any messages in case of the replay attacks. Because that is the passive attack that we are supposed to dealt with. So it can be prevented by tagging each encrypted component with a session ID and a component number. So this combination of solution does not use anything that is interdependent on one another. And due to the fact that there is no interdependency, there are few risks, or I can say vulnerabilities. So this works because a unique random session ID is created for each run of the program. Thus, a previous run becomes more difficult to replicate, and like in this case, an attacker would be unable to perform the replay because on a new run, the session ID would have changed. So session ID, also known as session tokens, are one mechanism that can be used to help and avoid replay attacks. So the way of generating a session ID, it could work like follows. Like there could be, I have given you already an example of the passive receiver, or I can say passive attacker. There could be A, there could be B, and they are exchanging some kind of password between the two parties like A and B. But C is monitoring each and every activity that is performed by A and B. And instead of respond that is given by A to the B, C is given the same response to the B by becoming an originator of the message. So in that manner this could be done. So session tokens, how we can deal with session token here if we are using session tokens here? So that could be chosen by random process, like we can use pseudo random processes that are to be used. Like otherwise, like if we are talking about the C person, so it may be able to pose as a B and presenting some predicted future tokens and convince A to use that token in her transformation. So like she can then replay her reply at a later time when the previously predicted token is actually presented by B, and B will accept the authentication. So one-time passwords are similar to session tokens in that the password expires after it has been used or after a very short amount of time. So they can be used to authenticate individual transactions in addition to sessions. And these can be also used during the authentication process to help establish trust between two parties that are communicating with each other. And B can also send like messages, but should then include a message authentication code which A should check. So timestamping is another way how we can use timestamping. Like we can prevent replay attack, but how? Like synchronization should be achieved using a secure protocol. For example, B periodically broadcasts the time on his clock together with the Mac, but when A wants to send B a message, then it includes her best estimate of the time on his clock in her message. So which is also authenticated, and B only accept messages for which the timestamp is within a reasonable tolerance. So timestamps are also implemented during mutual authentication when both Bob and like B and A authenticate each other with unique session IDs. And in order to prevent the replay attack, the advantages of this scheme are that B does not need to generate pseudo random number, or I can say the artificial number, and then that A does not need to ask B for a random number. So in network that are unidirectional or near unidirectional, it can be an advantage. And the trade-off being that replay attack, if they are performed quickly enough, that is within that reasonable limit, it could be succeeded. So this was about how we can prevent replay attacks with the help of these three techniques like time stamping and one-time password and pseudo random codes that could be used. So next is we are supposed to deal with like countermeasures that we will be using when we are dealing with replay attacks. First one is authentication scheme that we can use like Kerberos. We have already discussed in the fourth unit, I think. Kerberos protocol prevention, like it is also an authentication method that could be used. That could include some countermeasures, like in the classic case of replay attack, a message is captured by an adversary and then replayed at a later date in order to produce an effect. Like for example, if we can take the banking example, like in banking scheme that were to be vulnerable to this attack, and a message which results in the transfer of funds could be replayed over and over to transfer more funds than originally intended. But however, the Kerberos protocol, as implemented in, like, it could be implemented in Microsoft Windows Active Directory, that could include the use of the scheme that could involve timestamps to severely limit the effectiveness of replay attacks. So messages which are the past, or I can say which are past the time to life, that is TTL, they are considered old and they could be discarded in that manner. So there have been, like I can say, improvements that have been proposed. It could be like including a triple password scheme, or these three passwords are used with the authentication server, like Cricket Granting Server and TGS. So these servers use the password to encrypt messages with the secret keys that we can use between the different servers. So the encryption that is provided by these three keys help in preventing replay attacks. Next is like secure routing in ad hoc network. Like I can say temporary network that we are supposed to build. So there could be a secure routing in those networks. How could that be possible? Like wireless ad hoc networks, they are also susceptible to replay attacks. So in this case, like authentication system, it can be improved and made stronger by extending the like authenticated protocol, like I can say ad hoc protocol. How the method of improving the security of ad hoc network increases the security of the network with a small amount of overhead. So if there were to be extensive overhead, then the network would run the risk of becoming slower, and its performance would decrease. By keeping a relatively low overhead, the network can maintain better performance while still improving the security.
Thank you,
Next
ma'am.
and last example is like challenge handshake authentication protocol. So what is basically challenge handshake authentication protocol? Like we have discussed already, handshake protocol in, I can say, web security, in which we have discussed about handshake protocol in transport layer security. So in handshake protocol, what actually is the case here? There could be acknowledgement after each and every message that is being sent from the sender side, and receiver also send the acknowledgement that he has received that particular message. So acknowledgement could work in the picture if we want to deal with the same. So challenge handshake authentication protocol, it could work in the same manner, like authentication and sign on by clients using point to point protocol. They could be susceptible to replay attacks when using password authentication protocols, like for to validate their identity, as the authenticated client sends its username and password in normal text, and the authenticating server then sends its acknowledgement in response to this. So it is also dealing with the acknowledgement. So that is what the handshake procedure is. So an intercepting client is therefore free to read transmitted data and impersonate each of the client and server to the other, as well as being able to then store client credentials for later impersonation to the server. So challenge handshake authentication protocol, or I can say CHAP, it could secure against this sort of replay attack during the authentication phase, by instead using a challenge message from the authentication, that the client respond with a hash computed value that is based on the shared secret, for example like client password, which the authenticator compares with its own calculation of the challenge and shared secret to authenticate the client. So, by relying on the shared secret that has not itself been transmitted, as well as the other features like authenticator control repetition of challenges and changing identifier and challenge values. So, CHAP provides limited protection against replay attacks. So this was all about how we can take measures against the replay attacks if they were to be there. Next is a little more about message authentication code that is to be that has been there. Like As shown, the Mac provides the authentication, and it can also use the encryption for secrecy. And there are certain terms that are associated with the same, like generally use separate key for each, and it can compute Mac either before or after encryption, and it is generally regarded as better than before. So why we are supposed to use a Mac? There are certain conditions, like sometimes only authentication is needed, and we are supposed to put only header in the message. That could only work for small messages, and sometimes need authentication to persist longer than the encryption. Then we are supposed to deal with the SHA algorithm here, or we are supposed to deal with any other algorithm that is providing the authenticity. Now this is the condition that you are supposed to note here, like Mac is not a digital signature. Digital signature is a different concept. Next is what are the various properties of Mac. A Mac is a cryptographic checksum, and this is the formula that is given for the same. A checksum could be applied on the message with a particular key that could be used. So what is there is a message that is of the variable length, there is a key that is k, and we can use that to a fixed size authenticator. And it is a many to one function, like potentially many messages have the same Mac, but finding these needs to be very difficult. So this was all about message authentication code lecture. And next is the reference book, that is a book by William Stalling. It is available in the college library. If you want to have a look at this book, then you can get it issued from the college library and have a look at the same. And there is a today's quiz that is associated with today's lecture. There are 10 questions, and each question is having 4 choices. You are supposed to tick any one answer for the same, and at the end of the lecture you are supposed to submit me the answers. Have a look at all the questions. So these are 10 MCQs. So this was all about today's class. Thank you. Have a nice day.